and facing, the devil in the eyes. I have no financial training. I have no business training. So immediately I had to realize, okay, well, I didn't even know how to build a business plan. So, some of my franchisees, I've been fortunate where there was people who crossed my road who said, Bert, you've got a great concept. I can see your passion. I love your brand. I love what you're doing. But here are things that you should be doing and instead of rejecting it and going like, you know what, we're a gym, we're, or we're a personal training service. I'm not an accounting firm. Okay. So instead of dismissing it, what I did is saying, okay, well, interesting. How would that look? And then, consult and get those mentors, get those coaches to work with you. And eventually you do those things yourself. People who do business with me now would never believe that I was not capable of drawing up a budget or cash flow forecast myself.
But I think I think that's a big thing to be honest with yourself, to say that you can't control everything. You can't do everything yourself. I'm exactly the same. It took me, I would say 2 years back, I started to realize that I can't run everything. I can't do anything myself. You need to kind of put that over to somebody else at a certain stage. And that's important. I think if you can just do a couple of things very well, you'll end up way further than somebody that tries to manage everything and tries to.
So you need to do the important things well.
Exactly.
You see, it comes back to knowing what business you're in. A lot of people over-engineer their business. They want to have the best product, the best service, but they forget that the acquisition is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Sales. And sales, unlike in the old days, you could sell door to door with a script in your hands. That's not happening anymore. Now you have to take extreme ownership. People want to see the owner in the sale. They want to understand the story. They want to know they're buying into something more than just the product or just the service. And coming back to why franchising works so well is that in the service, you see the heart of the owner. In the culture of the team, you see the heart of the owner. And that's something that you cannot replicate. There's no amount of money that can buy that. But it's important for you to focus on the things that matter most to your business. We do tend to be very unproductive as business owners because you end up worrying about things that is not in your field of expertise. Okay, those things tend to worry you more than others.
And it's outside of your control.
Absolutely. Instead of focusing on the things that is in your control. And one of the things always in your control is getting new people to believe in your product, getting new people to love what you do and to buy from you. That's in your control. The problem on delivering the product to them, that's a good problem to have. If you've got sales coming in, but you don't have cash flow for the cost of sale, to give the product, for example, to cover your expenses, you know what? That's a good problem because that problem can be solved with sales. Sales is the majority. I always say this. Sales is the majority shareholder of your business, not you. If you understand that, then you start taking your ego out of it. You're like, okay, I'm willing to put myself on the line. I'm willing to be in the front line because
then
I'm not this. Then you can build. Absolutely.
And talking about the franchise opportunities that you guys give. So, let's ask one or two questions. So first of all, why franchise versus building something yourself? Let's start there basically. And then also if we look at some stats, 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 2 years. It's a stat everybody knows. So if I can kind of get personal once again, so how does the stats look at Body 20? Let's talk South Africa, the South African business. How does the stats look there? And once again, why franchise, not trying just do something yourself?
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, I think a lot of people have a misperception about franchising. Our franchisees owns their businesses 100%. So they are owners of their business. They have a license agreement with us to license your intellectual property, both tangible and intangible intellectual property, operational intellectual property, leverage the brand, the strength of our marketing as a whole versus the sum of its parts. And ultimately, that's the benefit to the franchisee. But the question of franchising or not franchising comes down to a finance model. So, for example, for you to raise capital either through equity financing or traditional financing from a bank, to grow your brand is quite risky. Okay, because ultimately you need to manage all of those risks. You need to manage all of those locations. So for us, it was natural knowing that we're in a service business. It's hard to replicate the service component of our business. Much easier to replicate retail stores, right? Because you've got the same products being sold. You've got the same, in our case, the service could differ from one location to the other, depending on the culture and the heart of the owner and the trainers.
So do you allow the owner to have some flexibility in the sense that where they want to take the business, not changing anything fundamentally about it, but that's the common perception about a franchise is it's kind of, let's call it the Bertus Albertse way of doing things, and I can't do anything anything as the business owner. Is that how does it work at Body 20 relating to that?
From a contractual obligation, to be honest, there's always this bit of a power imbalance between franchisor and franchisee, because ultimately you're trying to protect the brand. You also want to make sure that everyone benefits from the best practices, and the mistakes we've already made. And sometimes you get new owners with great ideas, and that's all valid, but they've not necessarily tested those assumptions in the market, so you want to make sure you've got a tried and tested formula for success. So we are strict on certain things, absolutely, like the price of our product, what type of package is suitable for what type of person, and things like that is important, sure, but there are things that you cannot that you can't enforce, okay? And that is a culture or a feeling about, and a culture is ultimately a feeling, right? It's like, how do you feel about your business? How do you feel about your work? Are you passionate? Are you excited to go to work? And you can cultivate that only if you've got the right leadership culture. Okay, that's the only way to do that. So in terms of franchisees having flexibility, absolutely. Our franchisees get to manage their own social media pages. Yes, we provide them with content. Yes, we provide them with guidelines. Yes, there's social media guidelines. But ultimately, they have a sense of freedom where they engage themselves with their members. It's still their heart in their business, but they're in a safe framework where they know, listen, as long as I do this, then there's a predictable success pattern. As long as I follow this process. Whereas that variable goes up exponentially when you put an untested and an untried assumption into the mix.
Absolutely. And it's also about protecting the brand as well.
No, it absolutely is. But again, protecting the brand is about protecting your franchisee and protecting the member in the location.
Business,
and that's what it's about when we speak about protecting the brand. Is not this bigger thing than the franchisees. No, the brand is the collective network. That is the brand. But the thing is this, is everyone does things differently. Then then it's going to be different value proposition in different areas. And that's why we need to make sure that we learn from each other and we put all of that information together to improve and to have a competitive edge, because we have more people on the ground, more people learning than anyone else. It's not about knowing the answer. It's about having a culture of learning, which we call validated learning. Now, what does validated learning mean? Nothing we do but with a thumbs up. What we establish early on is what is the assumptions we make, okay? And that's usually a bit of a leap of faith up front, right? So the assumption, for example, is when we developed the virtual personal training program, we said, okay, we assume that there's enough value for people to pay for online personal training. That's a big assumption, right? Because we're not selling it currently. We don't know what people will value it, okay? But instead of getting stuck there and say, oh, we're not sure, we said, okay, so we've identified that the value proposition is the assumption and how much value there is the assumption. There's no doubt that there is value. The question is just how much value is there? So then we said, okay, well, the only way to test that is to test it on the smallest viable market, okay? So we already had the smallest viable market within our existing members that's already stuck at the house. They don't have many other options. What a great time to test this service, okay, and to get a quick feedback loop in order to develop our assumptions and firm them up, okay? And we've been able to do that kind of with a scientific approach. What I mean by a scientific approach is that, a lot of times as owners, we make snap judgments, and it's easy because our opinion matters and we want to move quickly, right? So typically, you don't want to test those assumptions. You assume your assumptions are correct because you've had success before. So ultimately, you believe in your judgment to be good for your business. Sure. Whereas we've changed our mindset with that quite a bit over the years from saying, no, there's got to be a process that you can replicate, first of all. And a process that can give you sustainable results. And that process typically includes identifying your assumptions early on and then testing those assumptions. Now, the way we test them is by actually doing them, about actually launching the product, launching the service without having all the answers.
Okay, so basically it's down to a proven concept that I think the probability of success might be higher. Yes, you can't sit back and not work on your business. Obviously, you need to be there. And as you said, it's owner operated. Your heart and soul has to be in it. But I think there's some portion that we can allocate to some sort of a comfortability with the big brand behind you as a franchisee.
And your just track relating, record, right? Exactly. Your track record is important, especially with regards to franchising. And ultimately, it's an educational system. So the more training we provide, the more effective our training and our educational process, the better the franchisee will perform. right? Because
Yes.
ultimately they need sales training, marketing training, training on actually how to give the best possible customer experience. So, and those are things that small business owners don't have the luxury of. Okay, they're working inside of the business. How do they develop training programs and new strategies when they're busy, day in, day out, from the morning to the night, in just serving their client? And that's what
Absolutely.
allows, in a franchise system, it gives the franchise all the opportunity to work on developing those strategies, and also use the collective power of the entire network to improve. And also to market more aggressively than anyone else can, because you've got the collective national marketing fund versus people trying to build a brand out of a smaller pool of locations.
Guys, great news. If you enjoyed that sequel, that's not the full video. So the link to the full video is in the description below. You're welcome to go and check that out. But for you to avoid missing any future content, please remember to like the Facebook page as well as subscribing to the YouTube channel. Why? That's no benefit to me whatsoever. That's for you to never ever miss future videos that I'll be making. Anything regarding business or finance to help you out. Whether it's your personal finance situation, or you're a struggling business owner, or a thriving business owner looking for a different angle. We've got it all here at Pursuit of Moneyness. So I look forward to engage with you further. Once again, like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but most importantly, visit my website. Give me feedback. It's always welcomed. Thank you so much.